So, first and foremost, how are you doing today?
Wonderful. In Detroit,
Good.
it was a sunny day today, so that's actually nice. The snow melted.
Very cool. There you go. Oh, you had snow out there already.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
okay.
had we had snow. Yep, it was
Oh,
a real
wow.
pain because I still had leaves on the trees, so I was gonna
Oh,
rake, and then yeah, you know how that goes, and then the snow
of
freezes
course.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Born and raised in Detroit?
Yes. Yeah. Grew up in
Very cool.
Detroit, and then
Wow.
kind of I've lived in Nashville for college, and then
Oh,
a
cool.
little bit of time in Colorado as well, about 2 years, and then 2020 moved back to Detroit with my wife.
Gotcha. Very cool. Nashville is a place I've been to twice. Huge fan. I'm going back there again for the third time for a bachelor party next year. Really had a great time. Music scene, of course, is big.
Yeah.
Food, amazing. Did you like your time there for college?
Yeah, I did. I went to Belmont University, which is
Okay.
known for music production. That's initially why I went there, was for that. I ended up switching
Very cool.
majors, but I stayed, and all my friends were music majors. So it
Wow.
was just like once I got off campus, our house, we had like a recording studio in the basement. We would like play in each other's bands, whatever else. And so it
Wow.
was a lot of fun doing that, and that's where I really got a lot of my chops. And
I
grew a
see.
lot. I mean, they're all way better than me. Me saying chops, they probably laugh at that, but able to keep up with them at least. And
Yeah.
my freshman year, especially, was when I realized I have some skills that they do not. And that was with music production and specifically with synthesizers, was something where people were surprised what I could do or how I knew how to shape sounds
Wow.
using programs. So that's where at least I had some edge, but everybody else was so good at other stuff. But that was
Hmm.
my kind of lane. I would play bass because everybody else was better than me at guitar, and then I would just mess with synths and stuff and do a little bit of DJing here and there.
That's awesome, man. All right, so we're gonna, like I said, before I hit record button, we got a lot to catch up on, a lot of things I want to talk about. Before we even get into all that, I want to know a little bit about who you were when you were younger. So, like, what was little Gar Hoover like?
Yeah. I was always very energetic, loved to goof around. I would just run
Hmm.
around and was always interested in music. That was something that
Hmm.
I was just pulled and gravitated to from a young age, whether that was with like terrible keyboards or anything else that people would buy. Or I remember there was a
Hmm.
xylophone in the basement, and I figured out how to play Twinkle Twinkle. And like I had no learning or knowledge of music theory or anything, and I was like, "Oh, look, I
Yeah.
can do this." And I went upstairs and I showed my mom, and she was like, "Who taught you that?" I was like,
Yeah.
"I just did it." So
Figured it
that
out.
was like something that kind of carried on for a while, and then I have like older brother and then two younger sisters,
Hmm.
and my brother plays drums, or he did. He sold his drum kit, but so we would play in some fun little bands here and there as a family, and just kind
Yeah.
of jam with his friends, do stupid stuff. Like we played at his wedding a few years ago, and it was hilarious. But
Oh, that's pretty. Wait,
yeah,
you and him played at his wedding?
yeah. So like
Oh, that's
before like the
interesting.
actual DJ and stuff, he got back together
Uh-huh.
the band, and we just played
Wow,
covers
cool.
of like just like classic wedding songs and just had
Yeah,
fun with it, and then did
that's
three
sick.
songs, and then we were done, and then just the dancing started after that. So it was kind of funny.
Sure.
It was
Yeah.
I put more effort into that than the wedding itself. Like, because I helped with like the wedding ceremony and stuff, and
Okay.
recited some different parts of vows and things and whatnot for them. But
Sure.
yeah,
Mm. That's
yeah,
really cool, man. So, a couple things. Like I said, I was just looking at your Instagram just now, and real quick, just to kind of share with the audience how our paths not even crossed. Originally, our paths crossed from seeing each other's stuff on Instagram or something, probably teenage engineering. We'll get into all that, but like more recently, yesterday or 2 days ago, we had a conversation on Discord, and it came at a really cool time where I was like, okay, I recognize the name, of course, seeing you on the social sphere, seeing your stuff that you've done and stuff like that. But I've been really trying to be more intentional with what you did, right? Which is like reaching out and like checking in with people who are doing things that are similar, that seem interesting, and having like a conversation sort of off DM. So at that point, obviously, we just exchanged a couple of voice messages and stuff. And then, you know, I asked you the question of what's like inspiring you lately. And I wanted to kind of start here because I thought it was really interesting that your response to that question was very fundamental. Well, that's not the best word. It was very just similar to what's inspiring me lately, right? The fact that both of us are musicians and producers, and so we, you know, I would say more than just know our way around an instrument, but we, you know, in your case, guitar would be your main. You said bass earlier, but that's your main instrument there, right?
Guitar's the main, and then
secondary. Because I saw
secondary.
Dude, I saw. Do you have? Was that a Nord Grand that I saw on one of your pictures? Is that what that was?
It's
which one
an
was that?
old Wurlitzer. I don't want to say it's like a 120B or something. Like it's old. I saw it on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, they painted it. So it's originally
cool.
like a tan color, and it's kind of textured.
Okay,
it's like a cool.
Okay.
If it stayed the same, like how it's supposed to be, it would have been like still cool. But the bright red really pops.
Yeah,
I think that's fun.
Wow.
And so I bought it, and it's. I mean, the tines in it are pretty detuned, so it sounds like real like if you were trying to go for a lo-fi sound, it's got it. It's super out of tune, but it's still a lot of fun to record and sample and all that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would not have, you know, of course, guessed that. I didn't do, I guess, enough scrolling, but I saw the one on there, and I was like, oh shoot, he has like immediately I was like, oh, he has a Nord too, because I have a Nord piano upstairs rather, and the way that obviously the red color, but also like I know that the Nord Grands, I know the way they look and stuff like that. But going back to like what's inspiring you, man, yeah. So leaning a little bit more into playing your instrument of choice, which is guitar, and like bringing that into the, you know, OP1 fields of the world and other areas that you continue producing on. So like walk me through a little bit of that. Like what kind of stuff are you doing, and how has that been going lately for you?
Yeah, it's been going well. I got to a point where I was kind of tired of just creating. I create all of the samples for my own pocket operator stuff as much as I can. Just different synth lines, whatever else. And I was kind of hitting a point where I was like, okay, I hear all of these other artists that use guitar in their electronic music or whatever else, or people during COVID picked up guitar and are like, oh yeah, I'm adding guitar to my music now. And I'm like, not to be mean, but I'm better than you. And I don't even include it in my music. And so it was like this weird thing where there was like I kind of connected the dots, and I started to hear, there was a point where like guitar kind of fell out for a good while in like pop music in general. I think, and then it's as of late started to come back in and become more normalized again. Even in like rap music, you can hear it a lot. That people will just get loops and things and resample it. So I decided to finally record my own guitar stuff. I'm like, I got the equipment. A big part of it too was when I was in Colorado, all I had was my acoustic guitar, and I was like, well, that I can try running that through some amp simulators and stuff, but it's not going to have the same feel. So once I got back to Detroit and I was able to get my guitars back, I was like, this is something I should include. It'd be ridiculous for me not to. And people are looking for samples all the time. So if I can record this stuff and then share them, it's like something someone else can enjoy and reinterpret or chop it up however they want to. So it's been one of those where it's challenged me too as a player. I've decided to kind of get in more jazz chords and try and do that stuff, because I'm like, okay, that's really what people want right now, to sample for lo-fi stuff and whatever else. So I've grown as a player on top of just using it to contribute to my music.
That's really cool, man. And I think I remember one time a while ago, maybe a year ago or something. And again, the parallel comes in that me being a piano player, and I was doing like a koala sampler tutorial upstairs, and I played a regular chord progression, forget what it was, and flipped it because I was showcasing maybe the auto slice feature or something in the sampler app on the iPad. And I remember comments, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, I've never done this before. It was pretty fun. It was cool to like sample my own chord progression. That was pretty interesting or whatever. And then I just remember like the comments on there were like, yo, like if I can play anywhere near as good as you, I would be sampling my own stuff all the time. And I was like, oh, interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like it never
Yeah.
dawned on me like that's something to do. Like you said in the message when we were chatting before, it was like these two worlds were kind of separate, right? There was like the me learning classical, me learning chord progressions, etc., technique, all that stuff. That was one area, and then the experimentation side and the music tech and all that stuff was a different area, and there was like minimal overlap. And I think what you just mentioned too about people, you said like people are always like looking for sample packs and stuff, and that's an area that for me. I did not know. I mean, it's not really recently now. Maybe it was a few years ago now. But maybe when I first started like in this content creation journey a few years back, I had no clue about this world of sample packs because me, I'm
Right.
just like sample pack. I'm like, wait, no, I'm just making my own thing from scratch and then building on it. Like that's just how it kind of registers up here. So now that I know that that world exists, for me, it's a matter of like I actually put out, and it's not out now, but I partnered with BandLab and made my first
Nice.
sample pack with them, which was a great experience. Although it was extremely tedious, and the fun part was making the music, and then having to label every chord progression and do all that like drove me completely crazy. I was like, this is not fun. This 80% after just doing the fun part, all this other stuff. But that's neither here nor there. My thing right now is kind of like, okay, I've seen that you have sample packs that you've released and stuff. So like what's your process for and where can people like find them and stuff now?
Yeah. From the start, I had people asking for the samples because when I was
Okay.
working with my PO33, the knockout, I mean that's all samples. So I
Yep.
would I would just try and make and create samples as much as I could, and then people were asking for them after I did a what was it? It was a tips and tricks tutorial. Someone posted like, "Hey, like those drums are really good. Can I get the drums that you used, or where'd you get them from?" And I was like, I mean, I kind of put them together myself in Logic and pieced that together and chopped that up, and then sent that as just like over Google Drive, and people
Nice.
started downloading that. And so after that, I just started. Whenever I finished a song, I would just take all of the samples and just create one file. It's the worst way to organize stuff. It's super lazy, but if someone really wants them, they'll do it. And I just upload the one sound file in Google Drive, and it'll go through like the bass sample or
I
the
see.
synth pluck or the drum kit, and it'll do like the classic like doo doo, where it's like chopped up super close to each other just because you have to squeeze it all in the 40
see.
seconds on the PO33. So I'd have all of that and then just line it all up, bounce it as a file, and then post it once I upload my video, put it in the comments. So I would say at this point, maybe 90% of my videos that are for the PO33, if you like what you hear, you can probably find the samples in the description of the video. Or especially if it's a tutorial, I always have the samples because I want people to try and build it alongside me, or at least be inspired and create their own version of it, or like remix it even. So I've seen that
That's really
where
cool.
people have tagged me in it, and it's really fun to hear how people have reinterpreted what I've created and
Yeah.
what I've just sampled as just like a potential thing. And it's like, yeah, it's a real pain to have to stop my process of creation and filming and then bounce this file and upload it. As you're saying, the technical side, I can't imagine making a whole sample pack like that. But
Yeah.
in the end, people are grateful. And right now, it's all free. I don't have a Patreon or anything, so I know people have said you should start a Patreon, but I just don't really have the time now to kind of justify it. But hopefully with time, I'll be able to just make sample packs without them even being used in my music yet. So they could be something that's brand new, untouched. That's just, whether that's a bunch of guitar loops or drum samples or whatever else. I just really like getting really creative with my samples, because that's really where with the PO33, that's where it shines, is you got to have good samples. If you don't have good samples, it's not going to be interesting or good music, really.
Yeah. And I mean, I have mine sitting here. I actually got this. I have the arcade, I think this is called, and then the rhythm, this one is called. And so like these, I got these. These are some of my most recent TE products. Like I posted the other day, I'm like very late to the game, getting my hands on these things. And dude, it's been really, and we're gonna talk about the OPZ, of course, in just a moment, because I'm obsessed with that thing still. That was my first TE product that I ever owned and that I purchased when it first came out. I think it was 2018 or something like that, around that time. And I could talk about that thing a lot. I'm a massive fan. I saw that you released I'm jumping around a little bit, but we got to talk about this right quick. I saw you release like a live, not, what do you call it? Like an album that is a live performance of your OPZ stuff. So that is very, very cool to me. I listened to a few of the tracks, like sounds awesome. I love like just the intro, like it just starts up, like give me that vibe, that nice up tempo. Like I was feeling it for sure. Talk to me a little bit about what that process was like. Was it like a one take, like you made this a while ago and then you said, oh, let me just perform it? And then is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, I had the intention of making something with it for a long time, like a full set, because I saw someone else online who was just like muting and unmuting just one pattern. Up to that point, I was making entire songs in one project, just one song for a whole project, using all 16 patterns, like I would on a pocket operator. I took that knowledge and just imposed it on this the depth of the sequencer on that is insane. Super fun.
Mind blowing.
But I switched over because I was like, oh shoot, I could actually, instead of just jumping between projects at some point, it would be awesome to be able to just perform one live the whole time and just jumping between patterns and muting and unmuting the patterns. And so that's what I started with for that. So I would try my best to make what sounded like a complete song in one pattern. And you can really extend it and make one pattern really interesting. Having
mute
things
groups,
that are like
performance
mute
effects,
groups,
master track. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, conditional triggers, everything. And making it, like, even though it's 16 steps or whatever, we know its resolution is crazy, because then you can make it where it's even slower technically, where it's like, I don't know, you do it like divided by 4 or whatever, and I would just record in the chords and stuff so that it gives it a longer feel, like it's almost like 64 steps or whatever else, And so I would take, like, man, that took maybe like half a year or something. I would do other stuff and jump back to that and be like, oh, let me keep building it, because I was like, I want to just do like a whole house set and keep it consistent. So whenever I felt like inspired with like a house melody in my head, I just run over, grab it, start building that really quick. And then after that, I was like, okay, I got to record this. I did one attempt and I messed up so I just was like, I got to restart. So then I just deleted that video and then recorded the whole set completely through. If you listen to it, there's some things that are a little bit off here and there, where I unmute things maybe a little late or a little early. But for the most part, I was really happy with it. And I ended up using that where once I put it on YouTube, I just put the different songs and put those little chapter markers. And I was like, okay, if I'm dividing it up on YouTube, I can just take the audio and just chop it up at those different points and make an album with it all. And I made sure not to put any gap of audio where it's just silence in between the songs. So like if you were listening to it, it feels like if you're listening in sequence, it's a natural progression from one song to the next without it ever stopping. So it was like a really fun project that I had never done before. And then when I was able to perform with Teenage Engineering during Movement Festival here in Detroit at a music store, that was my go-to. I was like, oh, I already have like a whole set, like, and it's not going to stop. I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I paired up some pocket operators with it that I could do some punch-in melodies, or like I used the tonic to just do additional drum fills on top of it all. So it was in sync, and I'd like prep a pattern, and I'd press play, and it would do the drum fill where it builds up, and then I made sure to have a pattern that was empty. So I would have it go empty, empty, and then hit the pattern that I want, and then have at least one or two more empty patterns after that, so that I'd have enough time to hit pause again. So it builds up in sync with the song, and then I could switch patterns, and it wouldn't keep looping. It would just go to the quiet pattern. I could hit pause, and it like worked out really, really well. And that was my first experience with the TX6 too. Was at that show.
Yeah.
They just gave it to me. Tobias was like, "Hey, this one's yours. Just here's a few things you can do with it, and here's the reverbs and how you use it." And I was like, I'm sure there's more I should know, but here we go. Because those effects are fun, and it adds a lot of, like, because that's something with the pocket operators. People are like, oh, they're kind of childish because there's no like built-in effects or other things. But once you pair it, especially like the tonic with some reverb, it really fills out and sounds just like something you'd hear in regular tech house or something like that. So it was like that whole experience of recording Neighborhood, that album.
Yep.
I don't know why I haven't put it on Spotify. I only have it on Bandcamp, but I might upload that because it's fun. It's another way of just showcasing something I put a lot of hard work into, and I might as well allow other people to hear it in other ways other than just like downloaded files on Bandcamp.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, and as you mentioned that event at with TE, I'm now that's jogging my memory because I certainly watched some of that. It's on I think it's on TE's YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it's on their YouTube channel.
Yeah, that might be my first introduction, or one of my first introductions to you. As I'm remembering now, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I remember seeing that, and I just remember being like, yo, this is like, as a OPZ, massive fan, and I know that was on the desk. You were, as you mentioned, performing with that. I was just like, this is so cool to me. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to perform, and I've done some of this now, like at coffee shops and stuff, like live streaming and stuff like that with my OPZ, which is oftentimes a lot of fun, whether it's performing something I've made already or making something on the fly. Obviously when the creative energy kind of sparks like that, it's like it's a blast. It's a fun time. So that's really cool that you had that experience, first off. And yeah, man, the TX6 is so cool. I have mine right here. It's really cool because for either live streaming or performance, like what you just described, or even like creating content. Like I have things set up now in the studio here where with the ability to record your whole everything happening on the TX6, you can like obviously record it to USB stick.
Right onto
so USB. Like I have it's so good, man. Having my CM15 microphone, which is also right here, and having things set up in a way where I could, have this top-down camera, and it's more turnkey and it's super crisp quality. I'm still working on a few things. Like I have my Nikon mirrorless camera, and I have it set to autofocus. And sometimes, like actually with one of the videos, the CM15 I have, it's in a different depth, than the rest of the stuff on the table. So like at one part of the video, like it was just grabbing the focus from the top of the CM15, which was awesome for people who wants to see the top of that. But like you couldn't necessarily see everything else as clear as I would want, on the table. So it's like a learning process, of course, with that. But yeah, man, just kind of getting into this this creative ebbs and flow. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people on this show, as well as just people offline and stuff who are creators like us, and it's not always there, right, where we have this creative energy to output content and stuff like that. But when it is there, it's a fun thing. It's like you feel things rolling, you feel motivated and stuff like that. So I wanted to also talk. I want to go back really quick about the recording of the guitar. And
Yeah.
the way that I, kind of was thinking about this, is it you connecting physically like the line in on the OP1 field, for example, and just playing some riffs or whatever, and then be like, oh, this is cool, and then recording it, and then like looping that and building on it? Or like if you could kind of dive a little bit more into like what your workflow is from the guitar to the OP1 field, for example.
Yeah, for the OP1 field as of late, and on even like my latest song that I released on my YouTube channel with it is called Liftoff. I just recorded the guitar directly in. I had some pedals that I just used in front of it, and then just plugged right into the line in, so I could have like a little more drive, just because there's some trickiness with recording directly in. You don't really get to use all the onboard effects in the same way until after the fact. So with that, I had some effects going through and then into the OP1 field, and then I just would just cue it up, get ready to record it, and just took a few takes to get the right one. I think the nice part about it is it doesn't allow you to like zoom in and like cut and adjust things as much as you would want, like in a regular DAW. So it's very much just like that sounded pretty good. That's what we're gonna go with, and you just kind of keep going. It's it maintains the creativity a lot. You don't get caught up in the details, because when I'm working in like a DAW, man, I zoom in. I'm like, oh, I heard that weird pop there. How can I'm gonna drop the audio right there, chop that, or like crossfade, all this other stuff, and I get really caught up in that rather than just creating. So the OP1 field keeps me in that space, and if it does take me to a weird sound design place, it's really fun because it gets super strange. So that's where I love, just like I'll take something I recorded on the OP1 field and then put it in the drum sampler, and then take the different chops, see what they sound like. For like another song, I haven't released it yet. I should. It's on there, and it's kind of like more like French house type of feel. It's I just played in different kind of like funk guitar riffs, and then just chopped it up. And I don't even remember what the actual original guitar riff is at this point. It's just because I've used the chops all differently, and that's just where it's at now. So it takes something that I thought was good and is like, here's something better. Here's something we can chop up and get weird with, or I can just take a sample and make it so much longer. I can do a B section with the same sample, same guitar tone and everything, and use the parts I didn't use, or resequence it, and it feels completely different. Like I learned about that before I had the OP1 field with my pocket operator with the PO33. That I record into a DAW first, and then make sure this, just because you only get so much audio that you can upload, I didn't want to risk having too much, and it's just a little tricky to like hold down right and sound whichever sample you're going to do and then play guitar at the same time. I couldn't do it, so I had to record it into another source, and then I would just hit play on my DAW and then record it in on my PO33. So that was where I originally got the idea of like, oh wow, you can get a lot of mileage out of one sample, just chopping, flipping, and then flipping again for the same song. And that was for that was one of the first songs I did with the TX6 with the PO33, called Feelings, which is a French house track, because I was like, oh, this is, the TX6 has a built-in filter that goes that I just love. It doesn't,
it's so like, good.
It doesn't get too nasty. Yeah, exactly. But you can really crank the resonance, and it really pulls out good frequencies. So I love using it for that, because I had, on the PL33, there's no like overall filter. You can filter each of the sounds and automate them and do that, which is cool. But having a filter just in general that I can twist and dedicate is so great. I love it.
That is really cool. Yes. I mean, even with the TX6 being able to customize what those three knobs per channel do. So if you want one of them to handle the effect, you want them to handle a filter, things like that, just experimenting and exploring that has been a lot of fun. And it's funny that you mentioned about sampling on the OP1 field, because I just released a video a couple days ago, not questioning, but yeah, I guess yeah, questioning or like asking my audience, right? Like, hey, is the OP1 field good for sampling, right? Because from my view, right, I've used Koala Sampler extensively over the years, and so I'm so used to certain things when it comes to chopping samples. Obviously, touchscreen, tactile, that type of thing, but also being able to make changes to multiple samples at the same time, pitch multiple sample, like all these types of things. I'm like,
Right.
I've come to expect, right? And so I was using this app. I don't know if you've heard of this thing called Radio with like 5 O's. Have you heard of this before?
Mm-mm.
Radio? No. It's one of the best things ever, in my opinion. As someone who loves music, who loves creating, but also discovering music, just think about the app being a globe. The app itself is a globe, and it is like it's like a world radio from different decades, essentially. So you can go to Brazil
That's
from
awesome.
the 70s, and it'll play music from that. It's so good.
Well, that's
I
probably
don't want
good
too
for
many people
just
to know about
chopping
it.
things up.
Dude, yes. Yeah, man, it's really good. So I connected these two in the same setup I was describing earlier, and I'm like, okay, let me explore what it's like to chop samples on the OP1 field, which I haven't cracked that code yet. I haven't been able to figure out the best way to do it. Like, for example, I'll kind of say it this way. If I have something lined into the OP1 field, I hit up, do you know Indian Run Music? I'm sure you know Shane or you've
Yeah.
seen his content online. So I hit him up. I was like, yo, like, what I'm looking to be able to do, right, is have some music, whether it's from YouTube or from this app, going into the OP1 field. And as it's playing, I want to be able to tap the key live to have the sort of samples starting from that point, as opposed to sending the audio in, recording this, 20-second sample in the drum kit, and then having to go in after and then turn the knobs to get that. That drives me crazy having to do that, because I don't do that. I just get it, and when it's kind of coming in, it's like I thought that it would be like way too slow to do, but as I discovered in the actual video, is like, whoa, it's actually not that bad, right? It's like, oh, okay, I can actually get around this, and I found like little tricks and techniques and things. But one of the things that you can't do, and maybe you let me know if I'm wrong about this, but taking away that first part, like, okay, I'm okay with the fact that I have to figure out the start points of each sample or whatever. All right, cool, I'll do that. But I want to say, for example, make all of the samples gated. I want to change the volume or normalize or whatever, all the samples so they're all louder. And I want to say change the pitch of all the samples and make it a little slower or faster. From what I see, you can't do any of those at the same time. You have to do every single one manually for each key. But you did, and I'm curious to hear about this experience. You did just mention something I think someone posted a while ago. You mentioned like being able to record something to tape and then doing your changes there, normalizing and stuff, and then bringing what you just recorded, pitch shift or whatever, into the sampler. And that's maybe a workaround to do what I'm describing, I think, right?
Right. That's something I had to learn because I figured that too, where it'd be like, oh, I can just pitch down the entire thing. So then if you wanted to take your guitar or whatever else and you're like, oh, I need it to sound like weird chipmunky type of feel, or like pitch it down for some type of lo-fi or whatever, you could put it in the tape, record it to tape, and then slow it down and you get that lower pitch. And then from there, I believe you should be able to pick it, lift it up, and then paste it in, and it should work out at that new audio rate. Or if that's not right, then you could at least try and resample it again into the drums, and it could work. But
Gotcha.
that's something where the other hack I've tried to just pitch everything down together would be using the the endless sequencer. Because when you drum it in the endless sequencer, C is the normal pitch, like the middle C. And so that's when you play it back, it's at that pitch. But then if you drop it down anything below that, all of the pitch of every single note or all of the samples drop down too. But it stays at the same time of the tempo or whatever else you've had it programmed to. So I've done that to add extra layers to drums. I've found that's worked out well, where I'll record the regular drums, and then to add a little bit of like extra, I don't know, almost like sparkle or whatever else, I'll do a pitched up version of the same drums and remove the low end just to add extra texture on top of the drums so that they cut through a little bit better. But it's all in sync still because I'm using the same pattern. So that's a one workaround, I guess, that I can think of.
For sure. And I think that you kind of hit it right on the head there. It's the fact that that's what makes this such a interesting, and I even talked about this in the video. It's a weird and interesting and powerful and just different type of way of making music. And so when I talk to people like yourself who understand it, really well, it's really cool. I'm like, oh, as soon as this conversation is over, better believe I'm going to go, or maybe not tonight. I have other things to do tonight, but probably tomorrow, go to a nice cafe, be like, oh, this is on my agenda, you know what I'm saying, at this cafe. I want to, I never thought about some of the things that you just shared just now. So that is really cool. And I even thought about like, okay, there's, 5 to 7 or whatever sequencers on here. I don't really use any of the sequencers on here. As I mentioned, I'm an OPZ person, but I'm like, wait a second, like basically my bread and butter of like making music from when I was 16 to now is being able to, I do rely on quantize sometimes when I need it, right? I like having quantization, and I also like having the ability to, essentially record MIDI data in as opposed to audio. Like that's recording audio in like we do on the OP1 Field is not something that I've really ever done until I got this device, right? It was in Ableton, it was on my Motif, it was on my, Yamaha Motif or Roland Phantom. It's like, oh, I'm just jamming. I've recorded this MIDI data, and oh, this violin sounds pretty cool. Let me go switch this to a flute sound or whatever. Like that's like that's my way of moving forward to make music. So for me, with the OP1 Field, I've kind of discovered that I was trying. I had it for about a year or something now, but I was trying to very hard, right, to say, oh, this is a self-contained piece of equipment that I should be able to, I should be able to take this with some headphones or not headphones at a park, because the speaker I think is quite good on here, to just jam. And I should be able to make something from scratch on here. It has synth engines, it has sequencers, it has drums, it has tape, it has all these things. But I was trying that, and I'm like, oh, everything I make on here sounds terrible. Sounds nowhere near as good as something I make on the OPZ or on Ableton Node, or on Koala, on Core Gadget, these other places that are all MIDI related. So what I took from that is, oh, okay, there are several other, and I'll say 2 of them, other ways that I'm using the OP1 Field that just invoke such rich funness, for lack of a better word. Okay, one of them is sort of treating it like what it is at its heart, which is a 4-track recorder. We talked about this already, right? I'm a piano player, so if I'm in front of a keyboard, like my Nord piano, which the sounds in there are amazing, but there's no song mode or nothing or anything on there, I can connect that to this, and I'm like, whoa, oh, I could, you know what I'm saying? Like instantly make a musical idea turn to something on the OP1 Field. And I'm like, wait, why didn't I ever think about doing that before? That's why when you mentioned that about the guitar, I'm like, okay, that makes a ton of sense. Right. And then the second way is it's kind of drawn from my love of the OB4 speakers, which is I love experiencing music that I previously liked listening to, like on the radio or just music on my headphones or whatever, but now having a chance to experience them differently, right? And one of the things I've been doing on the OB4, do you have experience? You have one of those, or you have experience with the OB4s? You do, right?
Yeah, I love it's fun to loop it. It's like one of the best like party tricks is bringing that out.
Cool.
And people, you're just like show them, and they lose their minds every time.
It's so and so that's the thing with the OB4s, man, is that I didn't pay for mine, right? I'm what's the word? Fortunate, right, enough to have created content, shown value in my community, all the things, right, to have a relationship with TE, right? So they sent one over to me when it first came out, and if I didn't get that sent to me, I don't know for sure if I would have purchased one for $600 or $700. I don't think I was like, when I saw it, I'm like, oh, I need to buy that immediately, because I was like, it's got to be really neat because it's from them, but it's also just a speaker, right? So when I got it and I started messing around with it, I'm just like, oh, no, 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 no. This is special. It's special. It's different. It's cool. It's unique. And so I guess I say all that to say experiencing music that I like listening to on there, whether it's the radio or Bluetooth or something, now being able to save loops, which I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the enhancements I kind of need to see in the loop saving feature that came on an update on there. But in the same vein, bringing music that I love listening to and recording them to tape on the OP1 field and taking a 6-minute song or 5 minutes of the song, recording it on to track 1 of this tape, and that song maybe is a genre of R&B, and then muting that and doing another song in that genre, tape 2, another song different, that type of thing, and then doing the timed loop in, loop out point so that I can get a certain part of the song looping, and then from there I can pitch shift it and slide and all the things that I do here. It's just so fun. I'm not creating music from scratch, okay? Because I struggle with that, but I'm just having just a fun time doing that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly inspiring, right? I think that's why they call it the magic radio. Is like it. You listen to it and it excites me in a way because I'm like, oh, whoa, I never heard that song like that. Like we were decorating our Christmas tree, and that was playing. My wife had music paired to it. I just started messing. I just started messing with the Christmas music, and it's like, oh, this is crazy. I would have never guessed to do that. Like the Alvin and the Chipmunks song, like when you pitch them down to where they sound like themselves again, it's real weird because like they're chipmunk voices. I was like, oh, I have to do this. So it was just like it's just like a funny thing, but it is true. Cool. It's like I think testing and learning how to manipulate the audio on the OP1 field really will help you long term with it, because once you start to finger drum or get used to the sequencers, you'll be able to make a loop or whatever else, and then your experience with manipulating that audio and re-recording it or whatever else and resampling it will work out really well. Like that's been a workaround for me. I'll be like, oh man, the synth engine only has one LFO, and some people might find that limiting, but I use it, and then once I have that recorded into the tape track, I'll lift it, and then I'll put it in the drum track, because the drum sampler, because it can use up to a 20-second sample. Usually my loops aren't that long, so I'll be able to take it and I'll just make it full length and just press it one time, and it plays out. And then from there, I'm like, aha, now I've got another LFO. So then I'll just do the tremolo LFO and put some side chain on it, fake side chain, by just making it pump with like an upward saw. And it's a great like workaround in a way. So it really makes you get creative with your stuff. And it always has better or different plans than you expected, which is really fun.
This is definitely true. Now, have you had experience with the KO2?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
That's something
we did talk about that. Right, we did chat about that offline. Okay. What are your thoughts on it from like just like there's a lot of thoughts I have on it. I want to share them, but like, what are your thoughts from the outside looking in, like seeing people share it, create stuff with it, knowing that you love the KO? So like, what's your excitement level and your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly one of those where I saw it and I was like, this is a beautiful machine. It looks so crazy, and I love that. That's something that drew me to Teenage Engineering's products in the first place. It's their conversation starters. I take any of them on an airplane, and people are like, what is that? And some are concerned if I'm using a POC operator with open circuit boards, but other times it's a lot like they're just like, people are like, what are you doing? And I'll like give them the headphones, and they get pulled in. And it's super fun. But with so that once again, it's something that invites you in to play with it. I think and like the LCD like display, how they did it is so cool because it feels old school, but it's incorporating all this newer LCD technology with it. So I love that. I love that it's sampling. It certainly has more mileage, and being able to like pick the samples and choose it. It seems like it's pretty intuitive when it comes to playing things in with the sequencer. And what else I saw that was really cool is like people just put things together so quickly on it, and I think it is pretty much, I think, that the in between of the OPZ and a pocket operator, which I thought originally it went pocket operator, OPZ, OP1, but the OP1 is so much its own thing. I don't think it really is the same lineage as the pocket operators. So that's where I think calling it the K02 is a good way of describing it. It's carrying on the sampler idea, stretching it, pushing it further. The sequencer's a little bit different from what I've seen too, though. So that's something I'm going to have to get used to, because I'm used to seeing the whole sequencer play out in like the lights following it along, like on the OPZ or the pocket operators. So that'll be a little bit different, but it's something I've been working on. I want to get, and I've been. I don't know. It's hard when people are like, "Oh, Gar, are you gonna get it?" Because like they're super excited and they want to see what I can do with it, and I'm like, "No, I don't have it yet." Another product though that people have been like asking me about was the Woof box. This thing.
I've heard of that. Yeah. Oh, you have one. Okay. What's that experience been like?
Yeah, this thing is wild. It is. It's. I don't know how else to describe it other than like it's so small, but it is super deep. It's like I don't even know, like a hole to the center of the earth that's the size of like a soda can. Like it is. Wow. Like its form factor is so small, but the stuff it can do is very similar to the OPZ. But just having one knob kind of makes the menu diving component a little bit slower, but the synthesizer on it is insane. It has like 3 different FM modes, subtractive synthesis, like ring mod stuff. The effects on it are pretty cool. And the arranging style, I bring it up, the arranging style is a lot different than the pocket operators, because pocket operators just have patterns. Yes, this has patterns, but each synth that you pick, like the chord track or something where you have your chords, you can have patterns that are doing their own thing, and then the drum pattern is only one pattern that loops, whereas the chords is like a 4-chord track, similar to the OPZ. But then on top of that, you don't just go from one pattern to the next to make a song. It has a thing called scenes, which is interesting, that once I heard what Teenage Engineering was doing with patterns and scenes and stuff with the KO2, I was like, oh, this is probably going to prep me better for my experience with the KO2, is working with the Woof box and seeing the ways that you mute and unmute tracks, or you, it just sounds and seems pretty similar to that. Yeah. The thing that I find the most interesting about the KO2 is like the groups. So that's the part where it kind of has the same thing as the OP1 field, where it's got track 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can like manipulate the effects for that dedicated track based on whatever sequenced in it. But yeah, I'll let you share now.
Wait, what you can't do, you just mentioned, 4 tracks in the OP1 field. From what I understand, and this is something I kind of need to be able to do, is apply an effect only to one track on the OP1 field. You can't do that from my knowledge, right? It's to everything.
Right. Yeah,
is that a miss? Is that something that I want this effect on my drum track and I want that effect on my synth track?
Right. So you have those universal final effects where you can have where it's like, oh, I'm going to do the filter that goes through all 4 tracks, and they run into the filter or reverb or whatever else if you're doing ambient, an ambient track specifically. But before you record them in each, like whether that's the drum track or that is a synthesizer or whatever else, has its own effect as well that you can record onto the tape. So I'll try and get more mileage out of it by, okay, I'm going to put these weird this weird delay effect on my drums, and that will be recorded to the track, and that'll always be there. But then on top of that, I'll do a filter sweep that is live as all the tracks are playing together that affects all of the tracks all at once, but the delayed effect is still going underneath with the drums or something like that. It's just, I don't know. It takes me back to, I guess, how they probably had to record back in the day, where it's just all linear, and it's like whatever you can get to the tape, do it, and that's how it is. Because, I mean, growing up with MIDI, as you're talking about, it's like I'm used to programming and writing in the MIDI, and then just being able to switch what sample or sound I have on it and trying different things. Whereas with the OP1 field or like recording the tape, it's if you don't like it, you just have to delete it and try again. So that's where I think it's important with the OP1 field to punch in a sequence and then let that, and then sound and test different samples or synths over top of that sequence and figure out which one you think sounds best within context, and then committing that to the tape track. So it is still tricky, but I think with the KO2, it could be kind of like the best of both for me with the with my experience with the depth of the sequencer with the OPZ and I don't know. I love samples. I think they're really fun. And being able to have effects that are so creative and cool, like the distortion on that thing sounds wild. And that's something I've been hoping for with the OP1 field, is that there's like a distortion effect eventually added, because that's what's I feel like lacking from it. And you get really clean audio, which is great, but you really want to dirty it up sometimes, and you aren't really able to do that fully. But with the KO2, with that ability to apply that distortion, it sounds awesome to drums or just basic samples. You can get a lot more out of it. Just a regular sample by putting all these effects on it.
Dude, yes, 1,000% to that. And I think a couple things like what you mentioned about, basically getting comfortable with the sequencers on the field enough to the point where you can set it up to hold a punch in, like you said, a pattern, and then let it hold, and then kind of change things around, so you're not focused on making parameter tweaks and playing. It's already playing. You could listen to it and then say, oh, this sounds pretty cool. So that makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate you sharing that. And then I think when it comes, like, I would say for me, what excites me a lot about the KO2 is several things, being like one of the things I think it said on there, it said something like loop mode from OB4, one of the things on Sound's website. So I saw that and I'm like, oh, loop mode. I was like, oh, I know about loop mode on the OB4. I love looping on the OB4. So I don't know exactly the context of how that's going to play out on there, but I'm excited to experiment with that. And then like something like the what they were able to do for $300, but have this pressure sensitive on the sensitivity on the keys to like the harder you press, the harder the filter and that type of stuff for effects. That seems super, super interesting. And then I would say that my experience with mobile gear is mostly TE stuff that's sitting in front of me. There's like a MIDI keyboard back there, and then there's my iPad. And so to have this different form factor that's much bigger than than the physical mobile gear, because it's still mobile, I guess. So it's bigger in terms of form factor. For me, having that on my desk here versus one of these small things on my desk, it just seems like it's just going to be a lot of fun to have more stuff to look at. And you know what I'm saying? Like when I see people do the SP404 stuff and all that, I don't have any other piece of equipment that's comparable to this. The thing that's comparable for me is Koala Sampler, which I love, but Koala Sampler is limited in the sense that it's on the iPad and there's no aux in on the iPad, right? Or even headphone jack on there, right? If there was an aux in on the iPad or a headphone jack that can do both, okay, now we're talking. Now I can just sample from anything and bring it in. Obviously there's USB-C, but oh wait, USB-C is being used so I can listen to it on my speaker or something. So now it introduces needing TX6 in the mix with it and all that, which is okay. But the long and short is that I think that it's a little bit limited, that it doesn't have the things that I think you need in a sampler, whether it's hardware or software. So yeah, I'm excited for it. But the thing is, and we talked about it, right? Like, we're both going to get our hands on it at some point, of course. But what's interesting is it's been like I knew that this was coming out for quite a while, like several months. And, I talked about it in one of my previous videos. Like I was there and at a meeting, and I don't remember if I saw the box or a picture of the box, but I knew that they had a product coming out right on the heels of them dropping, maybe announcing the mic and having the TX6 out and maybe announcing the TP7, something like that. And people were like, $1,200, $1,600, like I don't have that type of mentality, right? Online and everything. And the people I spoke to there were just like, it's going to be so interesting and cool and fun to see people's expression and reaction to TE dropping a product that's in this price point. And that has been fun to see. It's been fun to see the music radars and the tech crunches and like these other, publications like that are excited about this piece of hardware, as well as like friends of mine who maybe don't own any TE products, or friends who own maybe one thing from theirs, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting that. Like, and it's cool. And I will say that I've been like practicing like more patience with stuff, right? And so for me, I'm in this place now where I mentioned to you, I have things set up in the room. I'm inspired by other things where I don't need a new thing to inspire me at this exact moment. So it's just been kind of cool to know that eventually there's going to be a time where I do, like if I had it right now in front of me, that may actually detract me from some of the other things. Like I keep looking over here. I got this Yamaha Montage M8X sitting over there, and I opened it up last night, and I'm just like, okay. And like in terms of like the sound on that thing is crazy, keypad's crazy, but in terms of being able to create content that's educational and musical and inspiring and all the things that we try to aim to do, this keyboard has a feature on it that might not sound exciting to most, but when I found out that it does work the way that I expected it to, last night at like 2 a.m, I said something like out loud. I was like, oh, it's fucking on now. Like I said that out loud because I was so excited for this. And this feature, again, not that exciting, but I mean, it's exciting to me, maybe not to others. It is a feature that I don't see on a lot of hardware, right? We have phones that are super capable now. I have a phone with USB-C on it now. And on Yamaha's digital piano that I used to have years ago that I've since sold, there was a way for me to connect the printer cable USB type B to, at the time, Lightning, which I have that cable connected to my phone and get direct audio, right? So I can capture video, not have anything in between, and just be able to spontaneously get stuff like immediately, which was like awesome for content, right? Whether it's live streaming or taking a quick casual video, whatever. No other keyboard since had that, like the other ones that I've tried and stuff. And I knew Yamaha, it has something to do with class compliance for USB or whatever. Like Roland's didn't have that feature at all. It only works connecting it to a computer. The long and short is when I plugged my USB-B to C in my phone last night, it didn't work. And I was like, damn, okay, it's not the worst thing in the world, but why doesn't it work? I thought Yamaha is good, plays nice in this camp. But I wasn't discouraged. I went in the settings and I said, oh, wait, there's a little USB option here, like vendor or generic. Let me change it to the other. Changed it, plugged it in, went to audio share on my phone, saw the meter go down, like it wasn't detecting my voice anymore. That's the telltale sign. And I was like, I played it. I was like, oh, my God. I was like, all right, now. So what I told myself is that, like, we're getting towards the end of the year. I'm feeling inspired. I have this awesome opportunity to get stuff like this from, companies and stuff on loan. And now it's a matter of, this is like, it's a culmination of these years of, I don't want to like sensationalize this, but like these years of making content and like trying different things out, understanding what I enjoy making, what I'm good at, like, which is education and showcasing music skills, all this stuff. So now I'm putting all that together in a, and I don't know exactly what it is yet, but by January 1, I definitely will. But in a package that's like repeatable, fun, quality for the viewers, all the things that it needs to be. That's going to probably circle around like showcasing stuff on this keyboard, chord related, of course, hence the name. So yeah, man, I'm excited and figured I would share that with you.
Yeah, that's like, it's one thing to make music, but then to be able to help assist others and help them grow and learn and see them become excited. Like, oh, I didn't know how, like I was able to just play this and it sounds the way I a thought in my head and I'm finally able to apply that, is
Yeah.
it's so rewarding to get those
You're so
comments,
right.
even on like tutorial things, where they're just like, oh, like I never thought about making a fake delay like that on the pocket operator. Like that's a great idea. And seeing people run with that and create is so fun, because I mean, the more of an environment we can create, like on YouTube or whatever else, to create a more supportive musical community, I think will be great. Because so often people become competitive or negative in the comments, and like that just discourages people from wanting to participate or record or post or do anything. But when we're able to like encourage and teach one another, I think it makes it a very, very positive form of social media that you don't see elsewhere. I think the synth community it either swings towards like anger or hatred towards a product or whatever else, or a company or different things, or they can be all for something else. And it's trying to find those people that are just like, hey, I'm here for the music. I don't care what you make it on. It can be anything. It could be a style phone or whatever else. But if you're creative with it and you're making songs and the melodies are catchy and everything, that they're willing to support it, I think that's great. And I think that's so many people buy equipment thinking it's going to solve the problem. And most of the time it's just not. They just don't have the musical knowledge. And so for you to be able to educate with a piano, I think is going to give people a lot more mileage with the equipment they already have with music theory or chords or whatever else. Because so often I'll be drawn to a product that is premiered like I remember years ago when like the Korg Prologue just came out. I was like, oh, that's an awesome looking synth. And then he started putting songs on it and demo it, and I was like, oh, that is crazy. I'm going to buy it. And then I thought about it and I was like, I can make those sounds on like Massive or whatever else, all these other programs online or on a DAW or whatever. And that's cool, but it really what I'm interested in, or what's excited me about this product, is the person playing it, their hands, their creativity, the progression, the melody. And that's where I started to realize whenever there was something new that's dropped, I'm like, okay, what makes me want this other than that it's new? And trying to figure out, okay, is it the tones that they're getting out of it? Can I get that out of any of my products? Or is it really just I like the music that they're making and I can try that on my own stuff?
Yeah, it's a really good point, man. I mean, they talk about gear acquisition syndrome and stuff, and it's a thing that I think a lot of people. I mean, dude, when I had this opportunity to get anything I want on loan from Zounds, which I'm still in this program, I was like, whoa. Now there's nothing stopping me from taking over the world in the music YouTube space. That was my mindset. I'm like, I can get everything. I can get all this stuff and try it out and do reviews and blah, blah, blah. But it quickly turned into, oh, okay, let me get these 4 or 5 products that I've always wanted. Now I have them in the studio. And then I'm sitting here in the studio. I'm looking over there. There's one. I'm like, man, where do I start? Like this, I'm overwhelmed here. I'm just... Everything is, kind of coming down. Now, since then, it's been about maybe a year. Now I'm in a place where, as you probably can see, like it's flowing nicely. I'm more aware, and it's just having more fun with it, enjoying it more.
Right.
And I was going to also say, so this is something, and then we'll get ready to wrap up because we're just about at an hour. But I'm very interested in talking through this a little bit. So like music, as a music content creator, like you and I are, or just a musical artist who happens to make content, maybe we'll say it that way. So like we have this space where we can express ourselves creatively. And then there's like this sort of question that I've been asking myself, and I've spoken to quite a few other people, which is music. Is it a thing that we have, and we're blessed to have this opportunity to have a way to express ourselves creatively, and we're intentionally not putting any pressure on the stuff that we're doing musically in terms of needing to or really wanting to make money from it? Or is it a thing that we love doing so much that we want to find a way so that we could provide for our families by, it's not going to be through Spotify or whatever necessarily, more than likely, right? But these other ways, the education space, the Patreon, the sample packs, the live streaming and donations, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you kind of fall on that spectrum? And the reason I ask that, because I'm curious to know, is music a thing that you've been able to figure out a way that makes sense for you in order to have an earning from, or do you do something totally different that's handling that side, the financial, the stability side that we obviously didn't talk about, which is fine, a little more personal stuff. But do you have that? Like, which of the two kind of ends are you kind of on?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. When I first started with YouTube, I originally posted to YouTube my original PO33 track because I was like, I don't hear anybody making music with just this product. And so I was like, okay, let me put something out there just for fun. Let's see what happens. And it took off, and I was like, well, I'll just keep making stuff with this, because I had for years wanted to release music and just have people listen to it. And like, I had one song that was like not, I mean, like nowadays, like not successful, but at least like 10,000 plays. I was like, yeah, 10,000 plays on SoundCloud. And I was like super excited about that. I was like, maybe this is going to be something. And then nothing else came of it. And I was like, well, at least on YouTube, people are watching this and interacting and talking to me about it. So I was like, you know what? It might not be making like house music or whatever else in my DAW and then just releasing the music and people are happy with it, but it's at least a musical expression, and and people are giving me feedback. Whereas like with Spotify, no one comments on it or whatever else.
Yeah.
You just see the numbers, and that's just like discouraging, really. So unless it's like family or friends, and then I'm just embarrassed that they listen to it. I'm like, why'd you waste your time with that? But it is one of those with it where it's like, at first I was like, this is just to scratch the itch for me. It's like, oh, let's see how far I can push this PO33 and get crazier and crazier. And people loved it. And I was like, wow, I'm actually being affirmed in music for once. This is like super fun. And then, went out to Colorado with my wife, and we were both in grad school at the time. So I was part-time. I was working at a church. I was working at Chick-fil-A. And then I was like, okay, I need to get some additional money somehow. I was like, I've got the ball rolling here with YouTube. Let me see what I can get with this. And it was like, you know what? If anything, it'll be my funded and paid for hobby. And that's kind of how I've seen it since then. There was a point where I was posting enough where it was like a decent like side income where we could have money to at least go on dates. But I mean, like since then, financially we're far more stable now. But my revenue stream has decreased dramatically because I just haven't been posting as much. But it's one of those where I'm like, I'll still post because I love it, and it's like, you know what? Being a TE mentor, I remember from the start, I was like, man, it would be awesome to be able to get a OP1 and be able to make enough from YouTube to be able to buy those products that I've always wanted. And then I received it from TE. And that's like an even greater compliment than just buying it on my own, being like, it's the company themselves recognizing, hey, you've done a lot for us. Go crazy with this next product. And like that was, I don't know, I felt so rewarded in that. And that's where it's like, you know what? There's a lot of awesome synths, a lot of cool products. And I just, at some point, I'll love to try them and buy them. But I mean, I'm just happy with where I'm at right now with the products I have, the depth of knowledge I have with them. Because as you mentioned, it can become crippling. And I feel the pressure where it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't used my Micro Freak in weeks or months. It's collecting dust. And it's like, well, like OPZ is like all in one. I can make a track and everything together. And that's where I love TE products. It's all in one for me. And it keeps me focused because a lot of times I'll like grab different things and get distracted quickly. So all that to say, yes, YouTube for me and music is funded hobby is how I say it. But would I like for it to get bigger and become more prevalent and become more substantial? Yeah. And if anything, I'd rather have more recognition rather than money from it. Because I'm just pretty content where I am financially, and it's just I just love sharing music, and the more people that can hear it, the better for me. And so that's really what it comes down to.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll leave it with this then, man, because I think live streaming, is that a space that you've dabbled in, or have you ever done live streams and stuff? Not
Never.
so much. Never
Done it.
So that to me, it's been years in the making, but I believe I have strong beliefs that, I was mentioning next year and being in this space where I'm like, oh, okay, this is where I want to make it happen, whatever that it is. Like I want to ramp it up a little bit in terms of like the content and the quality and the education, all these different things. And it's been 3 years worth of experimentation and thinking about, okay, you have, YouTube videos. Both of us make those on our channel. We have like regular YouTube videos. We have like short form content that we do on Instagram, etc. And then you have the space of live stream. And I've done a good amount of live stream on different platforms over the years. And I can say that for the type of stuff that I like doing, like interacting in real time, being myself on camera without having to be perfect, but just being, organic and my natural self, showcasing stuff like live for people. That is, and not having to worry about editing necessarily all the time after. That's a space where I'm very, very excited to dive back into, because I was on Twitch, I was on Reddit, I've done a little bit of like Instagram Live and stuff like that, which I do not like Instagram Live at all. There's like a few things that I think need to do, man. Like if you say, oh wow, Khordmaster's on live right now, and you go into my live stream, and what I'm either interacting with the audience, or I'm just doing my own thing on the keys or whatever I'm doing there, but you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I want to go back on Instagram, because Instagram, I want to see what else is happening on Instagram. There, in my opinion, there's two things Instagram needs, okay, right, from live stream. One of them is it needs the ability to be able to like have the live stream still going on while someone is viewing the app, right? Like in my opinion, I still want to be able to DM someone, precisely, and TikTok. You need to be able to, because there's a really good chance that something else is going to be more, that people will get bored enough to get out of the live stream and go do something else, unless the live stream is something extremely, better than what they think they can find on the app or whatever. This is obviously my opinion. Mm-hmm. So that would be one thing. And then the other thing is like, okay, if I go on the app and I want to go into a live stream of someone doing something music related, but none of my friends that I follow are doing anything music related live right now on Instagram. But there's probably 10 or 100 or 1,000 people, DJs, producers, etc., who I just don't follow. So in my opinion, there needs to be like this explore page for live streams. Why is that? Why does that not exist? Right? And then you're like, oh, I didn't know this person exists, but he or she is just chilling in their room, noodling around on the OP1, and they're entertaining or whatever. And now I find them as a result of it. So that is something I'm interested in. But for now, it's going to be YouTube. YouTube, it has they've implemented a discoverability feature on live stream, which integrates to their YouTube Shorts thing. So it's like vertical only on your phone, and as people are scrolling through Shorts, there's a chance that someone's live stream will pop up on there. So for me, that is something that's very exciting.
That's a good idea.
I very much think it is. But dude, this was an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Obviously, we got your number and stuff now, so we'll be talking and stuff like that offline, of course. And let's keep the conversation going, man. I'd love to have you on again in the future at some point, maybe when we both get our hands on the KO2.
Yeah, totally. That would be awesome. Thank you for having me as well. It's been a lot of fun to talk to someone that's a fan of just music in general, but also just using products and just sharing them, and also TE stuff. Like, you've got a great depth and love for it, and so do I. And it's just fun to talk to someone else that like geeks out about it. Is really fun.
Yeah, it really is, man. Hope you have an awesome rest of your evening, and we will talk soon. All right.
All right. Sounds good. See ya.